Well, folks, we have some breaking news from the credit card world. Today, Citi released a new credit card. It is called the Citi Custom Cash. I'm considering getting this card for myself because it can give me 5% cash back on restaurants. I don't have a card right now that can do that. I'll explain how the earnings on this card work later in this review video. But for starters, the Custom Cash has no annual fee. It also has an introductory offer of 0% APR for 15 months on balance transfers and purchases. Balance transfers, of course, are subject to a balance transfer fee that I'll talk about later. The Custom Cash also has a sign-up bonus right now of $200 if you spend at least $750 on the card within your first 3 months of having it. So there's definitely a lot to love here at a basic level with the Citi Custom Cash. Like I said, I am considering applying for it. That said, I may wait a little bit because I'm also planning on applying for the Chase Sapphire Preferred to get that new 100,000 point offer that I told you about last week. A link to the video with everything you need to know about that bonus is at the top of the screen and in the description below. But after that, I'm seriously considering getting the Citi Custom Cash card. So in this video, I'm going to go over the features and benefits of this new card. Then I will tell you what I believe to be the pros and cons of the card. Finally, at the end of the video, I'll give you some examples of people and situations that I think the Citi Custom Cash would be a good fit for, as well as some examples of people and situations that I think the Citi Custom Cash might not be as good for. But before I get into it, I just want to remind you that if after you watch this video to the very end, which really helps with the YouTube algorithm, by the way, so after you watch this entire video, and if after watching it you think the Citi Custom Cash is a card that you're interested in, I would really appreciate it if you use my link in the description below. If you use my link and you are approved for the card, my channel will get a small commission. This is no extra cost to you, but it's just a way for you lovely viewers out there to support the channel so that it continues to be worth my while to create content like this for you. All right, let's get into the Citi Custom Cash review. So how this card works is you get 5% cash back on up to $500 in purchases in your top eligible spend category per billing cycle, okay? Other than that, you get 1% cash back. First question, what are the eligible spend categories? Well, they are restaurants, gas stations, grocery stores, select travel, select transit, select streaming services, drugstores, home improvement stores, fitness clubs, and live entertainment. So let me break this down with an example, right? Let's say you get this card and in your first billing cycle, which is roughly speaking a month, right? Let's say in your first billing cycle, you spend the most out of all those eligible categories I mentioned, you spend the most on restaurants. And let's say you spend $400 during that billing cycle on restaurants and you put all those purchases on your Citi Custom Cash. Well, you would earn 5% cash back on all your restaurant purchases during that billing cycle and 1% back on all other purchases, including those on the other eligible spend categories that aren't restaurants. You don't have to opt in to this, okay? Citi automatically looks at your spending, looks at which of the eligible spend categories you spent the most in during that billing cycle and says, okay, for this billing cycle, restaurants, in this example, is the 5% category. You don't have to opt into anything. It's completely automatic. Now, let's say during the next billing cycle, you don't spend that much on restaurants, but you decide to, I don't know, retile your shower. Let's say you do it yourself, DIY it. You spend, I don't know, $900 on, some stone tile for your shower. Well, in this case, because you spent more on home improvement stores than on any other eligible spend category, home improvement stores would automatically become your 5% category for that billing cycle. So how much would you earn? Well, you would earn 5% back on the first $500 in that category, which comes out to $25, and 1% back on everything else, including the additional $400 that you spent at the home improvement store for your tiles. $500 plus $400 is the $900 total. So what's your net cash back on your $900 home improvement purchase? Well, you get 5% back or $25 on the first $500 of that purchase, but only 1% back or $4 on the remaining $400 of that purchase. So your total cash back on your $900 purchase is $29, which comes out to about 3.2% net. So this is where it gets tricky, because the larger your purchase gets above $500, the lower your total cash back rate becomes on that purchase, because the more of that purchase is subject to the 1% rate. So what's the break even here compared to, say, a 2% back card like the Citi Double Cash? The break even point is $2,000. If you make a purchase in your 5% spend category for the billing cycle larger than $2,000, you'd actually get more back with a 2% back card like the Citi Double Cash. If it's less than $2,000 in that category, you'd get more back with the Citi Custom Cash over the Citi Double Cash. Now, one strategy would be, if you're really a credit card reward maximization fiend, one strategy would be to split up your purchase if possible. Let's take the purchase of those $900 worth of tiles at the home improvement store. You can make one purchase for $500, right? And that includes tax with your Citi Custom Cash. then go, we'll put those tiles in your car and then go right back in the store and buy the rest of your tiles with your Citi Double Cash, because that way you get the 5% on the first $500 with your custom cash card and 2% back instead of 1% back on the remaining $400 by using your Citi Double Cash. What else can we say about the custom cash? Well, technically, the cash back for this card is earned as Citi thank you points, which you can redeem for a statement credit or have direct deposit to your bank account or be sent a paper check. There are other ways to redeem thank you points that may yield an even greater rewards rate than what I'm talking about in this video. But to keep things simple, because this is really a cash back card in my book, I'm just assuming that you're going to redeem your points for cash. By the way, there's no minimum when you redeem for a statement credit or direct deposit, which is nice. For some cards, you need to hit a $25 or something minimum rewards to redeem. Not so with the Citi Custom Cash. There's no minimum to redeem for a statement credit or direct deposit. And of course, your thank you points never expire as long as you have the card. Now, let's talk the pros and cons. Pro number one, no annual fee on the Citi Custom Cash. That's always a plus, right? With this card, you don't have to worry about, oh man, I got to do the math again this year, see if this card is worth keeping or not. No, you don't have to do that with this one. Pro number two, earnings are best in market in some categories up to $500 in spending per billing cycle. For example, restaurants. There's no other card that gives you 5% back at restaurants. Granted, with the Citi Custom Cash, it's only up to $500 of restaurant spending per billing cycle, but that's still significant. If you're a high roller and you spend more than $500 a month at restaurants, you eat out a lot, and if you have a partner, right, both you and your partner can get this card. And if you strategize a little and keep track of how much you're spending on each of your respective cards, I'm not talking to authorized users here. I'm talking about both of you get your own card. Then you could potentially play it right and get that 5% on up to $1,000 in restaurant spending per billing cycle between your custom cash and your partner's custom cash. Pro number three, you don't have to think if you don't have to. Citi automatically looks at your spending for the billing cycle and determines which of the eligible spending categories you spent the most in for the cycle and automatically makes that category your 5% back category. With some other cards, not going to name names, but with some other cards where you get elevated cashback rates like 5% on certain categories and certain timeframes, sometimes you have to go online and either opt in or select that category for that quarter or whatever the time period is. Citi Custom Cash, no. Citi does it for you based on your spending automatically. Pro number four, the introductory 0% APR offer. Like I said at the beginning of the video, right now the Citi Custom Cash is offering a 0% introductory offer on both balance transfers and purchases for up to 15 months. There is a balance transfer fee of the greater of $5 or 5% of the balance transfer amount, whichever is higher. But you can just forget about the balance transfer and just enjoy the 0% introductory APR on purchases. Just make sure you have the cash to pay off your balance before the 15-month introductory APR period ends so you don't pay any interest. Finally, pro number five, the sign-up bonus. It's actually not the best sign-up bonus in class right now, but it is something, right? If you're going to get this card anyway. Right now, the sign-up bonus is $200 in cash back if you spend at least $750 on the card in the first 3 months from account opening. And if you want to take advantage of this, if you want to take action with the Citi Custom Cash, I would love it, love it, love it, love it if you use my link in the description below. Much thanks to you if you choose to do that. That said, and this is kind of a con, but I'm not going to list it as a con, but just FYI, the Chase Freedom Flex, which I reviewed recently on the channel as well, link at the top of the screen and in the description below. The Chase Freedom Flex, for example, which might kind of be a competitor to the Custom Cash, the Freedom Flex is giving $200 cash back if you spend only $500 in purchases in the first 3 months of having it. Now, this is probably a moot point for many of you out there because, even $750 on a credit card in a 3-month period, that's still only $250 a month, right? Compared to spending, what is it? $166-ish a month to get the Freedom Flex bonus. It's almost neither here nor there, but I thought I'd mention it. And speaking of cons, what are some of the cons here of the Citi Custom Cash? Con number one, while the rewards rate for some categories are certainly best on the market, at least for up to $500 in spending per billing cycle, higher earnings rates can be earned in some other categories with other cards. For example, grocery stores, which as one of the Custom Cash's eligible spending categories, you can get 5% back on up to $500 worth of grocery spending per billing cycle, which is about a month, or you can use the American Express Blue Cash Preferred card. I personally have this card, which gives you 6% cash back at U.S. supermarkets on up to $6,000 in U.S. supermarket spending per year. The Blue Cash Preferred does have a $95 annual fee that is waived for the first year. I have a link to the Blue Cash Preferred in the description below if you want to check that card out. Con number two, the 5% balance transfer fee. That's high, okay? 3% is actually more typical. So the Custom Cash's 5% balance transfer fee certainly runs high if you want to do a balance transfer from another card. Card number 3, if you're a rewards maximizer, you really have to be careful of putting large purchases on the custom cash, even in the eligible spending categories, because that 5% is only good up to the first $500 in purchases in that category per billing cycle. If you're making a purchase for thousands of dollars and you can't split it up, it may be better to put that purchase on a flat 2% cashback card like the Citi Double Cash, or if you're into travel points, maybe put it on your Chase Freedom Unlimited to get 1.5% back, and then transfer your points to the Chase Sapphire Reserve, where you get that 50-point bonus if you redeem your points for travel through Chase Ultimate Rewards or through the Chase Pay Yourself Back program. I cover that strategy in my Chase Freedom Unlimited review that you can check out, link at the top of the screen and in the description below. All right, now that I've covered the pros and cons here, I want to talk about some people and situations for whom that I think that the custom cash is good for, as well as some people and situations that I think the custom cash isn't so great for. Let's start with the kind of person I think the custom cash is good for. So one example, I think the custom cash is good for people who already have a few solid credit cards and they want to increase their arsenal, so to speak, so they can continue to maximize their rewards on each and every transaction, using the proper card for each transaction to maximize the reward. So basically credit card maximizers, right? And I'm like this. I like to maximize my rewards on every transaction, and that's the reason why I might get this card for myself, so I can get 5% back at restaurants, up to $500 per billing cycle. I don't have a card right now that gives me 5% back at restaurants, so that makes the custom cash really attractive to me. Another kind of person whom I think this card is good for is someone who can tag team with a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, or something like that, and they can each get this card, right? And they can use one partner's card for restaurants, right, and get 5% back on restaurants for the billing cycle up to $500 in spending, and use the other partner's card at, say, gas stations, right, which is another one of the eligible categories. You get 5% back up to $500 in gas station purchases per billing cycle. I think if you tag team in this way, you can really rack up a lot of cash back with this card. All right, now I'll mention some kinds of folks and situations that I think the Citi Custom Cash might not be the best fit for. First kind of person who this custom cash might not be the best fit for is someone who doesn't spend a lot of money in any of the 10 eligible spending categories. If you only spend a little bit of money every month in each of those categories, you might be better off with just a flat rate 2% cash back on everything card like the Citi Double Cash. Second kind of person for whom the custom cash may not be the way to go is for those who travel abroad a lot. Why? Because, and I don't think I mentioned this previously, but the Citi Custom Cash does charge a 3% foreign transaction fee for purchases made abroad. All right, folks, that is my review of this new card from Citi, the Citi Custom Cash. I think it has a lot to offer to the right kind of person. Like I said, I'm thinking about getting this card myself for my personal credit card arsenal. And if you are too, I would really appreciate it if you use my Citi Custom Cash link in the description below. If you do that and you're approved, the channel will get a small commission. Thank you so much for doing that. I also have my review of the Chase Freedom Flex, which is probably a competitor to the Citi Custom Cash, right over here, as well as my review of the Citi Double Cash card that I mentioned throughout this video right down here. I will see you in those videos. Happy earning, happy rewards, everybody. Bye-bye.